I always feel like when I read crime, I don't know what to expect. I'm either gonna love it or hate it. There's no in between. Hi, my name is Anne, and today I want to talk about In the Woods by Tana French, which have been sitting on my shelf for over a year. I read this book in February and it took me a whole month to finish it. I couldn't find the energy to sit down and read it, but it had a grip on me though, and I was thinking about it all the time. To be honest with you, I really wanted to finish it to know what's happening, but I had to finish some stuff with my PhD and my job, and I had to market my new book and all that fun stuff. So I placed it on the nightstand so I could easily reach for it when I went to bed, but I never touched it, so I moved it to the couch, where I usually rest. And when I got to relax, I would look at it, reach out for it, read a page or two maybe, and then just give up. Does anyone else do that, or is it just me? I finally got to read the book in the days after Russia invaded Ukraine. It was sort of my coping mechanism, the way I deal with things. So for a few days I set my PhD aside and just read In the Woods. And I think that was about the time that I had the corona again. Oh boy. In the Woods is a story about an investigation that happened in Knocknarea in Ireland. A young girl was found dead one morning by some archaeologists, and so the story begins to find the killer. It was brilliantly written and plotted, and it was complicated, and you know I always love a little complicated, convoluted story. Rob, the protagonist, states from the very beginning, he also narrates the story. He says that sometimes he lies, so he's not really trustworthy. Oh my god. It makes me wonder how reliable the protagonist is throughout the story, and by the end of the book, I'm still trying to figure out like which parts were exactly as he explained them. You know what I mean? Just so you know, there are spoilers ahead. Aside from the story itself, I loved thinking about the story when I wasn't reading it. Even though it took me forever to finish it, I didn't feel like I was missing out on something. I was truly living it, truly deeply immersed in it. I also remember quite clearly the evenings when I would discuss the book with my husband. My husband hasn't read this book, but it was quite nice discussing it with him. Let me explain. I was describing to him this part in the book where they wanted to build a road and they were going to take down the forest to build it. And there was this brief history of the place, of how the industrial land evolved and how the agricultural land devolved. And I remember sitting on the floor and describing everything to my husband, and he would just sit there and listen, and we would try to find a place in Greece where like we've seen that happen before. And we were trying to map everything before us and trying to figure out how Knocknarea looked now, before, when it was agricultural, and then when it became industrial, and after the road would be built, what it would look like without the forest. It was fun. I hold this memory very close to me, so dear to me. It's the little things that matters, isn't that what they say? I suppose that's my little thing. Rob, the protagonist, had two best friends when he was a kid, Peter and Jamie. One night, Rob was found in the woods with blood all over his shoes, and Peter and Jamie were missing. Shortly after, his family moved and he was sent to boarding school, and he even changed his name. He started using his middle name instead, and every choice he's made ever since in his life, which is vividly described in this book, is just so consistent with the trauma that he lived when he was 12. When the body of a young girl was found in his hometown many years later, when he was in murder investigation, he hid the fact that he was from Knocknarea, and he said nothing about the traumatic experience that he had. Having had that experience, I kind of, understand why he didn't say anything. He was just too emotional, maybe. I'm not justifying him, I'm just explaining why he maybe hid the truth. But what I don't understand is why his partner Cassie played along. He was, they were best friends too, and she knew everything about his past. So, like, being, I don't know, she should have stopped him. Rob is overall a very likable character, even though his actions are questionable. There was this one part in the book where I almost put down the book and I couldn't read anymore, when he tried to kiss the victim's sister. He didn't. But oh boy, that was so difficult to read, especially with everything going on with Cassie. But more on that later. I really liked the fact that there were two cases in this story that could or could not be related. It wasn't clear until the end. Until they got the killer in today's case, it wasn't clear if it was the same person who could have abducted and maybe killed Peter and Jamie. And it became all the more complicated when they couldn't figure it out, and they were trying to link the cases by looking for someone who was alive and around in both cases. And this just adds to the entire list of possible suspects, from the people who wanted to build the road, to her parents, to a crazy fan somewhere. Brilliant. I think this is the best, most complicated book I've ever read. Moving on to the things I didn't quite like. Rob and Cassie were partners, and they were investigating Kathy's death together. And aside from that, they were also best friends since the day they met, I suppose. Forever. Amazing chemistry, amazing friendship, and as I was reading on, I was like, yes, finally a story about friendship. Finally, two heterosexual people, male and female, are just friends and they aren't attracted to each other. It doesn't have to be about sex anymore, and they could just be good friends, besties. And then, spoiler alert, they slept together one night and everything went south from there. Not only did their friendship become physical, but it also got ruined completely. It became so complicated and awkward that they ended up never speaking to each other again. And just like that, the amazing friendship got ruined. Such a shame, because there was so much potential to show in this book that a man and a woman who are attracted to the opposite sex can be friends. I believe Rob's trauma is to blame. it doesn't justify his actions, but it kind of explains them. And when Cassie tried to confront him about being all weird after what happened between them that night, for some reason, I still took his side. Even though I knew I shouldn't have. But anyway, I really wish that they could be friends again. And at the end of the book, Cassie gets married to the other partner in the investigation, Sam, but I'll talk about them later. And Rob calls her drunk and tells her that he loves her. And I was like, dude, what are you doing? I didn't want them to get together. I just wanted them to be friends again. I was rooting for their friendship all along. And at the end of the book, I was left with this hollow feeling, just sadness, pure sadness. About everything, no mixed feelings, just sad about every character in this book. So moving on to Sam and Casey's relationship. I keep calling her Casey. A few things about Sam and Cassie's relationship. We did not need this. Somewhere at the end of the investigation, we got a blurry hint that Cassie, that Cassie might be in love with Rob. And then at the end of the book, she's suddenly engaged to Sam. Where did that come from? And maybe it's not important how it happened. I don't know, maybe it's just me. But just give me a break. We went from a ruined hetero friendship with one partner in the investigation to a marriage with the other partner. Why did Cassie have to be with either of these men? Throughout the entire book, I really liked Cassie's independence. It feels so weird to say Cassie. I had a classmate in school whose name was Casey, and it was spelled the exact same way as Cassie in this book. So when I read this book, I was reading it as Casey all over the place. Casey Maddox. And then I found out that this book was made into a series called Dublin Murders, I think. So I watched the trailer and it was like Cassie. And I'm like, what? It's not Casey? Anyway, throughout the entire book, I liked her independence. The way she did not need a man. She was tough and she was understanding and she was kind and she was sarcastic. She was perfect. And yeah, she went on dates occasionally, but she never gave out the vibe that she was looking for a husband. And don't get me wrong, she might be very happy with Sam. I don't know that. I can't say. Or maybe their marriage is just adds to the loneliness Rob is feeling and piles on every wrong decision he's ever made in his life since the incident with Peter and Jamie. But personally, I would have preferred if Cassie hadn't ended up with either of them. Before filming this, I wrote down my thoughts on this book, and I got so emotional at this part. And I really hadn't realized how much invested I was in Rob's character. And I think this says a lot about Rob's character, or maybe it says a lot about me, I don't know. But I really think we need more characters like Rob. Flawed and raw and real. I also wanted to talk about Kathy's sister in this video, Rosalind, but I decided not to in the last minute because I am no expert and I know nothing about psychopaths. But I do want to point out how important it was that this book made it clear that psychopaths aren't mentally ill. I think many people mistake it for mental illness, and I was really glad that it was very clear in this book that it's not. That's it for today. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!